World War III broke out on Earth some years ago, and it became obvious that humanity wouldn't survive a fourth. For this reason, a new arm of the law was created, the grammaton cleric, and made responsible for hunting down men who could still feel. This was because emotion was also the source of hatred and evil. A country known as Libria was formed, and its outskirts were referred to as the Nethers. The police discover a hideout for sense offenders in said Nethers, and bullets begin to fly back and forth the moment they make contact, causing the loss of lives on both sides. Just then, police reinforcements show up and break into the hideout. Two tetragrammaton clerics, John Preston and Errol Partridge, also show up and approach the inner room. Preston instructs the cops to blow the lights the moment he breaks down the door, and they obey. It becomes so dark that even the culprits can't see Preston. After a moment of silence, the cleric begins to open fire in all directions, using only the light from his shots to navigate the room. Barely a minute later, a handful of offenders are sprawled lifeless on the ground. The lights come back on, and Preston sources out a stash of art hidden beneath some floorboards. These and other forms of art are called emotional content, EC10, and they're prohibited in the New World. Preston has the cops retrieve the art, verify them, and burn them all on the spot. Soon, he and Partridge return to their car, and Preston notices his partner kept a book for himself. It's suspicious, but he lets it go as they discuss ridding the world of emotions. They return to Libria, a totalitarian country where hate is a memory, where at the same point every day all its citizens inject themselves with a serum called prosium. This serum suppresses all human emotions, making it so that people live in utter peace. The president, known only as Father, gives a wonderful speech, and his subjects applaud him like well-tuned robots. After Preston and Partridge return to Libria, he's called in by Vice Chancellor DuPont of the Tetragrammaton. He's questioned about his family, and Preston admits to having two kids, Robbie and Lisa. Unfortunately, his wife, Viviana, was incinerated 4 years ago for expressing emotion. DuPont finds it questionable that a first-class cleric like Preston didn't notice the signs, so the tension becomes palpable. Luckily, DuPont lets Preston off with a warning. The cleric can't stop watching the tape of Partridge, showing the tiniest bit of emotion. To ease his mind, he goes to the records and asks about the book he saw with Partridge. Apparently, Partridge hasn't logged in any evidence for weeks, and it becomes glaring that he's compromised. Immediately, Preston tracks Partridge down to an abandoned building in the Nethers. There, he finds his partner reading the book he kept earlier. They talk for a moment, with Partridge reading him an excerpt from said book. Preston offers to go easy on him, but Partridge would rather coil his hand around his own gun, leaving Preston no choice but to shoot him straight in the head. As Partridge's body slumps, his replacement, a newbie cleric named Andrew Brandt, appears and drives Preston back to Libria. Preston finds his son watching one of the president's speeches and advises him to report his friend, whom he caught crying. Then he returns to his room, plagued by the excerpt Partridge read him. It gets worse as Preston dreams of his wife, how the authorities barged into their home and took her away just for showing emotion. Before she left, she kissed him, begging him to remember her as their kids watched. Waking up, Preston takes out his dose of prosium, accidentally breaking it after wiping his face. His son, Robbie, notices this and threatens him to stop by Equilibrium to replace the dose. The family sits for breakfast, only for Preston to discover his son already told Brandt that he'll be replacing his dose that morning. As promised, Preston stops by Equilibrium, but finds it closed down due to terrorist activity. Brandt shows up at this moment to pick him up, and Preston conveniently leaves out the fact that he's off the Prosium. Next, they track down their first target together, a lady named Mary who's been off the Prosium for weeks. Preston easily tackles her in front of her mirror, but can't even maintain his gaze. Brant notices but stays quiet as the cops tear down the house. Soon they find a hidden room filled with colorful walls, perfume, and all sorts of EC-10. Scared that they'll burn it all, Mary tries to shoot Preston. Quickly, Brant pulls his own gun out, only for Preston to stop him from killing her. Once again, Brant notices but stays quiet. In interrogation, Mary grabs Preston's hand and asks why he's alive. The cleric gives a circular answer, but Mary claims she's alive to feel. That without emotion, life is pointless. Downstairs, DuPont teaches the trainees gun katas, a technique used to maximize any gun to kill the maximum number of people in the shortest time. After watching them for a moment, Preston heads home. That night, he misses yet another dose of Prosium and dreams of Viviana getting incinerated. He wakes up panting, peels off the window covers, and for the first time, basks in the beauty of Libria's sunrise. Eyes now open, Preston rushes to the bathroom, face to face with his Prosium, but one look in the mirror makes him put it away. Then he heads out to the office, and while he waits, Preston realizes he wants nothing to do with Prosium. Quietly, he drops all his doses on the floor, crushes them, and heads in, gaining a strange feeling just from touching the railing of the stairs. He soon realizes that his desk looks just like everyone else's, and it irks him to the point where he changes things. Brant shows up at this moment and questions Preston about it, but the cleric lies through his teeth. Moving on, they head out to another hideout in the Nethers with bullets already flying around. They're up against 50 men, and as they proceed, Preston can't even bring himself to shoot one person. He just watches in horror, staring at the blood on his hands. After the massacre, he walks past the corpses and dumps his gloves, feeling the walls until he comes upon a basement filled with contraband. He turns on a lantern and soaks in the beauty of these objects. One of Beethoven's records calls out to him, so he turns on the record player. The instant the music starts to play, the snow globe in his hand falls to the ground, and he gets overwhelmed by emotion. Preston spends the next few minutes weeping, and even keeps a memento from the stash of contraband. Brant promptly burns the rest of it, asking Preston why he kept a piece for himself. In turn, the cleric lies the same way Partridge did before his death. Just then, they get called to the back of the hideout. Apparently, the offenders were hiding some dogs. The clerics and cops do not get why people would keep animals if they weren't for food, so Brant orders the immediate massacre of the dogs. Preston tries to stop it, but relents for seeming too suspicious. As the dogs get shot, he can't even look at them. Suddenly, one of them runs towards Preston. He lifts it, looks in its eyes, and begins to quiver. The thought of this innocent dog being killed stops him from just handing it over to the cops, so he lies about wanting to get it tested for disease. Later, he seeks an audience with DuPont, questioning him about disregarding the law and killing sense offenders without trial. It's pointless, as DuPont claims it's the will of Father. Preston goes straight to the evidence desk to retrieve a box of Mary's things. He sniffs her ribbon and, for some reason, sneaks it into his pocket. Next, he drives off into the Nether at night, not knowing that Brant is tailing him. Preston soon arrives at the outskirts. He pops his trunk, pulls out the dog he saved earlier, and tries to get rid of it. But the dog stays, making it so he can't abandon it. Helpless, the cleric returns the dog to his trunk and takes off his coat to warm it up. He's still petting it when patrol sweepers show up with guns akimbo. He has to step away from his vehicle, and they ask him for identification. Unfortunately, it's in his coat. He's almost killed, but first they search his car. collecting the keys to his trunk immediately after. The moment he says he's John Preston, the captain of the patrol team tells his men to stand down and apologizes for harassing a first-class cleric. Preston almost gets away, but the dog winces from the trunk. Suspicious, the captain approaches the trunk, disregarding Preston's warning. As expected, he finds the dog and orders his men to shoot the cleric. Sadly, Preston is well versed in gun katas. He swipes 2 shotguns from the closest sweepers, blows their heads off, and pops out 2 of his own guns to continue the massacre. Within a minute, he empties his cartridge into no less than 12 sweepers. Quietly, he picks up the dog and returns home, where he hides his prosium doses behind his mirror. The next day, Preston goes for training at HQ, only for Brant to join him. As they spar, Brant informs him about the murders in the Nether, adding that Father has accelerated the crackdown on sense offenders. Next, he invites Preston to raid a hideout in Sector 7. During the raid, the cleric comes across a group of men and can't bring himself to kill them. They don't trust him at first, but he leads them out through a back door with only one officer witnessing the scene. As they peel out, sweepers show up, leaving Preston no choice but to take their lives. He goes as far as breaking multiple bones, and when more sweepers show up, he pops out nails from the bottom of his guns, burying them through various helmets until every one of the sweepers drops to the ground, dead or unconscious. The offenders had made a run for it while this happened, so Preston goes looking for them. Sadly, he finds them in the hands of Brant, who gives Preston another chance to shoot them. He refuses, handing the gun back to Brant. Quickly, Preston leaves the room, only hearing the numerous gunshots and thudding of lifeless bodies. Later on, he approaches DuPont once again, claiming that he's ready to be Father's tool to destroy the underground, the biggest base of the resistance. DuPont promises to pass this along. Preston then heads to the morgue to see Partridge's corpse and his personal effects. Among them, he finds a small collection of photos, one with the word freedom written behind it. Turns out to be a picture of Partridge and Mary, so Preston visits her, wanting to know the nature of their relationship. She plays dumb until she discovers Preston killed Partridge. In a fit of rage, she grabs a pen, attempting to gouge Preston's eyes out. He easily subdues her and puts some space between them, concluding that she was Partridge's lover. Moving on, Preston barges into a grammatica lesson, a class where forbidden literature is taught, to ask the teacher about Partridge. In turn, he sends everyone else out and slams the teacher on the table to show seriousness. Asking again, the scared teacher reveals that Partridge always stopped by to see a man named Jurgen. Looking around, Preston notices a stack of books labeled "Do Not Touch," and immediately throws the teacher through the stack. An abandoned warehouse happens to be behind it, and Preston steps into it, gun in hand. Soon Jurgen walks out of the shadows, easily noticing that Preston is off the prosium. With the push of a button, a hatch mechanically opens up before them, and they go underground. Jurgen makes Preston take a polygraph, and the mention of Mary's name sends the needle fluctuating like crazy. He then announces that Mary's going to be incinerated tomorrow. Jurgen knows this already, and after admitting it, calls Preston into his office. There, they discuss the conundrum of emotion, leaving Preston wondering what he must do. In response, Jurgen asks him to kill Father. Now restless, Preston runs across the street, disorderly and frazzled, finding an alley to catch his breath. Soon, he's surrounded by sweepers and taken to see DuPont. Apparently, he'd heard rumors of an infiltration. Preston thinks he's been caught until DuPont charges him with sniffing out the culprit. Playing along, Preston promises to double his efforts, only to head home and stash even more doses of prosium behind his mirror. He stops by his kid's room, but Robbie catches him wielding his prosium dispenser. Preston has to lie that he was just checking it out. The next day, the day of Mary's incineration, he visits her for the last time. The alarms go off, indicating the time for a prosium dose, and Mary watches as Preston misses his. It dawns on her that he's on her side, and she gets so emotional that she holds his hand. Later on, Preston links up with Jurgen, and they discuss killing Father. He's unsure that it'll achieve anything, but Jurgen begs to differ. Apparently, the resistance has bombs already planted at multiple prosium factories, and if they can disrupt distribution for a day, human nature will do the rest. Preston agrees. Returning to his desk, he reviews footage of Viviana's incineration, and it sparks a fire in him. He rushes across town to where Mary's incineration is about to take place, running through the halls as fast as he can. Unfortunately, she's already in the airlock when he arrives, and all he can do is watch her burn. He's overwhelmed with sadness as he steps outside the building and ends up weeping with his head between his knees. Worse off, Brandt shows up at this moment, punches him, and arrests him as a sense offender. Brandt drags Preston all the way to DuPont's office for official charges, adding that he's the one responsible for killing the sweepers in the Nethers. DuPont runs a trace on Preston's sidearm on the day of the murders, but it's Brandt's gun that turns up. Instantly, Preston turns everything around and announces that Brandt is the sense offender. Nothing Brandt says helps his case, and within seconds, he gets dragged out of DuPont's office. Afterwards, DuPont retains the warrant to search Preston's home, but the cleric doesn't flinch. Instead, he complains about having never met Father despite all the hard work he's done. Without responding, DuPont unshackles Preston, giving him a chance to hurry home. He meets a bunch of sweepers already present, pretends to stay calm, and runs like hell to his apartment. Upon entry, he rushes to his bathroom, pulls off the mirror but doesn't find his prosium doses. At this moment, he panics, only for Robbie to step in, wielding the doses in his palm. Luckily, the little boy has been off the prosium since their mother's death, and managed to keep his sister off of it too. He and Preston share a smile as they acknowledge what the cleric is about to do. As planned, Preston makes a call to the vice council, leading to the arrest of Jurgen and all the major rollers in the resistance. Come daybreak, Preston is dressed in white and taken to see Father as a reward. He's taken through various security measures, one of which is getting tested. He gets stripped of his katana and taken in for a polygraph. The first question is inconsequential, because all the sweepers present prepare their guns to shoot him. Just then, Brandt shows up again, smile wide as a clown's. It turns out that Father died a long time ago, and Preston was but a puppet used to bring in the resistance. In truth, DuPont has been the leader of Libria, and this realization drives Preston to a point of mania. He pulls out 2 concealed weapons, applying gun katas as he shoots everyone except the examiner in the blink of an eye. Next, he steps into the lobby and continues his massacre of as many sweepers as dared cross his path. Reloading his weapon 3 times isn't enough, so he steals the machine gun off a dead sweeper and continues his shooting spree. Finally, he comes face to face with DuPont, Brandt still smiling beside him. Preston dumps the gun, looks around, and approaches DuPont. Suddenly, armed samurai peel out from behind the pillars, surrounding Preston like horses on a carousel. Smiling, Preston swipes a katana from one of the samurai, slashing his counterpart in front. With decisive strikes, swords cut through men like butter, slaughtering them. Much to DuPont's surprise, Brandt picks up a katana of his own, taking his battle stance. Sadly, he lives only 3 seconds after this, with Preston cutting off his face alongside both his weapon holsters. All that's left are two masters of gun katas, Preston and DuPont. It's a struggle for who can shoot the other as Preston swerves DuPont's hand and DuPont does the same. With quick motions, they try to kill each other, but Preston comes out on top, hitting DuPont's weapon away. DuPont tries to appeal to Preston's conscience, but the thought of his son living in such an emotionless world pushes him to shoot DuPont square in the chest. Ever so calmly, he walks into the media center and opens fire on every transmitting device in sight. All of Father's transmissions cease across Libya, escorted by the explosion of multiple prosium factories. In no time, citizens once enslaved take to the streets, killing every sweeper they can find. Thus began the era of freedom. Preston always had an affinity for feeling, but due to terrible guidance, he brought death to many innocents. By missing his prosium dose just once, he realized how wrong he was and did terrible things to make the world right again. Is your goal worth the means?